The sight that the generals want outsiders to see. Contented and orderly monks. A far cry from the uprising 3 years ago, when angry monks led an exasperated people in a nationwide protest against their military government. To prove to the outside world that the rebellion is over and the country is going about its normal business, the generals are holding an election. But I found people inside the country somewhat underwhelmed. Ask someone about the elections in a busy market, and he suddenly has urgent business to attend to. The sight of anyone on the campaign trail is rare and doesn't draw a crowd. There's apathy in the towns. And travelling the length of the country, I found indifference in the countryside. And can you blame them? 20 years ago, these people flocked to the polls and voted for democracy, and the generals are not going to allow that to happen again. This time, the generals have organised the elections according to the new constitution to ensure, however people vote, they remain in control. Welcome to elections, Burmese junta style. The constitution guarantees the Burmese military a leading role in the new parliament, with a veto over all legislation. Aung San Suu Kyi, whose party won the 1990 election, is under house arrest again until after the election. She's called on the people of Burma to boycott the poll. Following the uprising and the brutal crackdown by the military 3 years ago, more than 2,000 of her supporters remain in prison. With everything ready for what the generals call the introduction of disciplined democracy, they launched the election campaign here by announcing that no international observers would be invited into the country, and foreign journalists are being told to stay out. Every day the Burmese newspapers carry a public health warning, telling people not to listen to the BBC, among others, because we're sowing hatred among the people with our killer broadcasts. It doesn't exactly make one feel welcome, and I set out with caution. Taking tea in a leafy Rangoon suburb with 3 ladies whom people here call the 3 princesses. They're all friends of Aung San Suu Kyi, and, like her, their fathers were all political leaders, prime ministers after independence in 1948.
We had no hard feelings about the British. We are betraying.
But they're all defying their friends' call for a boycott and standing as prospective parliamentary candidates. Why?
Because this election represents only the beginning of process of fostering democracy. Because according to the 2008 Constitution, votes or no votes, the new government will be formed. If the democratic forces won't participate in this election, the military and their cronies or proxies, they will rule this country for another 100 years.
Now, you were a childhood friend of Aung San Suu Kyi. Don't you feel you might be betraying her?
No, not at all. We love her personally. She's like a sister to me. So whatever we are doing is for the sake of the people and the country, not for us or for our families. I'm sure she'll understand.
Hundreds of pro-democracy candidates are defying the boycott, arguing that at least the elections could give them a voice in the new parliament, though campaigning in elections junta style is not easy. They have to fund their own campaigns. They're not allowed to criticize the current government, and they must get permission for any meeting of more than 5 people. We caught a glimpse of one such gathering through a car window. All election meetings are by invitation only, with the men from military intelligence checking that no one is there who's not on the list. And was it deliberate to have the election campaign coincide with the rainy season? Meetings indoors can only be held in government-approved buildings, costing hundreds of dollars an hour to rent. Only the government party, the big party as it's called here, can afford such luxuries. And the party is accused of intimidating voters.
If they do not give a vote to the big party, they will lose their home. And some voters, they have a warning that if they do not vote the big party, they will lose their shops in the market, something like that. So, this kind of, pressure is suffering right now.
Those elected will come here to Burma's new capital, Naypyidaw, where foreigners are not encouraged and taking pictures of government buildings is forbidden. We filmed 8-lane highways and modern town planning seen nowhere else in the country. Huge ministry buildings are separated from one another by acres of jungle plain on which the city is still being built. We took these, the first pictures of the vast new Parliament building where over 100 of the 450 seats are reserved for the military and many more will go to the government-approved party. There are palaces for the generals and smart accommodation blocks for civil servants who apparently complain about living here. There are bus stops in the new city but no buses and no mobile phone signal either. But at 99 meters high, there is the tallest pagoda in the country. So why build an expensive new capital in one of the poorest countries of the world? Many would argue that it's just another example of the man who's been Burma's military dictator for nigh on 20 years now, Than Shwe's extreme paranoia and megalomania. Naypyidaw is the subject of much speculation among the chattering classes back in Rangoon.
When the uprising occurred, you could see the whole people, the whole country, uprising against these people, especially the generals. So they must have felt very unsafe and very scared living among the ordinary Burmese people. So they cut off themselves from the people, their own people, and they left for Naypyidaw, built a new city there, a grand city, where they can enjoy themselves from the ordinary people. So I think they feel very safe there.
Naypyidaw means the abode of kings. The statues here are of 3 of Burma's famous medieval warrior kings, to whom people say the 77-year-old dictator likes to compare himself. Than Shwe is accused by many of nurturing a personality cult in the manner of his ally, Kim Jong-il of North Korea. On the road from Naypyidaw to Mandalay, I recalled how throughout history Burma's rulers have built pagodas, traditionally to appease the gods for crimes committed against their people. Mandalay, the former capital of Burma, is littered with pagodas. Than Shwe is determined not to be outdone. Just outside the city, we found Than Shwe's own personal pagoda. Maybe playing a "my pagoda is bigger than your pagoda" game, it is the highest of any built by an individual ruler in the country's history. But Than Shwe needs to be seen with the guardians of the faith here to give him respectability, a sight which is provided regularly on state television. Monks willing to be filmed with the generals who killed and imprisoned so many of their number in the uprising 3 years ago. Who are they?
They are not genuine Buddhists. They would betray the Buddha himself if they had to. These monks who collaborate with the generals are given special favours. If any of them rebel, they are removed. The generals are afraid that the monks and the people might join together again. But if they can discredit the monks by association with them, then there will be divisions between the monks and the people, and the monks won't be able to lead anymore.
This senior monk is one of the few leaders who managed to avoid arrest after the 2007 uprising. It doesn't stop him condemning the regime, not least because it's the monks who have to feed the people, millions of whom are going hungry. At this monastery in Mandalay, leftovers are given to those who come begging at the gates. Children who should be in school spend their days scavenging for food in a country which spends 40% of its wealth on the army and 1% on health and education.
The standard of education in the country is very low. They don't educate people, so that the ordinary people are unable to analyse the gravity of the situation, and that helps the current government stay in power.
And is this a deliberate policy?
Yes.
If the people were properly educated, they'd rebel.
So with the monks who led the revolt 3 years ago in hiding or fled the country, other political opponents in prison or under house arrest, and potential troublemakers quiescent or corrupted, it looks as if the generals have the elections sewn up. But they're taking no chances. We flew 1,000 kilometers north to Cochin State, which borders China, one of the ethnic states which make up some 60% of the country. We made our way to a remote area, only open to tourists because it's considered a local beauty spot. The confluence of rivers from China and India forms the Irrawaddy River, which flows the length of the country. But people here told us that this and 20 other villages in the area are to be flooded, to create a dam to sell power to China, and they're being ordered to move out. The villagers have never had running water, let alone electricity, and now their homes are to be washed away. For them, the forthcoming elections are hardly a priority.
We don't know whether we'll vote or not. Nobody's been here to explain to us how to vote. Anyway, as things are, I'm too worried about whether or not I'll have a home.
In the capital, Myitkyina, the government is refusing to allow local ethnic political leaders to stand in the elections, those who might speak for local grievances. We tried to reach them on the phone and went to their houses after dark, but no one would talk. Nearly half the people in the state are Christian. And church leaders tell you that they've been persecuted for years, and now would-be political leaders are getting the same treatment, though no one will speak openly. The Kachin State Progressive Party has been excluded from participating in these elections. People here tell you it's because they represent the Kachin people, which ties in with a pattern emerging from the ethnic areas of Burma, where local parties and entire regions are being excluded from these elections. From Kachin State in the north, through the Shan and Karenni, to the Mon and Karen states in the southeast, local political parties have been forbidden to participate, and entire townships have been told they can't vote, leaving hundreds of thousands of people unrepresented and disenfranchised in these elections, junta style. Nearly all the ethnic states in Burma are at war with the junta and support local rebel armies. We joined the Karenni army, whose soldiers admit that they were no match against the recent Burmese army campaign to destroy hundreds of villages in Karenni state. The inhabitants fled for their lives.
The government soldiers started burning the village and then opened fire with machine guns. They were shooting everywhere. It was the old people and the small children who were killed first. Everyone was terrified, running in all directions, trying to escape the bullets. They said we did not deserve to live because we support the Karenni rebel army. Those of us who survived ran into the jungle and then started walking.
A local cameraman joined the mass exodus of people to record the flight of entire villages heading to refugee camps across the border in Thailand. They walked for days. Many fell sick and died for lack of food and medical care.
I had a bag on my back and a baby in each arm when I fled. For the pregnant women, it was worse. Some had to stop on the way to give birth. When the government soldiers caught up with them, they killed them. We all had to keep moving. Some women were so pregnant that they could barely walk, so they got stones and beat their stomachs to kill their babies, to miscarry, so that they could escape from the government soldiers.
The soldiers have noted more units of the Burmese army closing in, the nearest on a neighbouring hilltop. And the arrival of foreign engineers. All this activity, they say, is to construct a network of dams in the state.
With this dam project here, the government have brought in Chinese experts to supervise the construction, and they've built military bases for protection. They've laid mines everywhere which are really dangerous for the local people. As soon as the project is finished, they will sell the electricity to Thailand. The government will get the money, but there'll be nothing for us Karenni people.
The Burmese generals aren't stupid, or they wouldn't have held on to power for so long. The program of demolishing villages and building dams in Karenni state is being repeated the length of the rivers which divide Burma from Thailand and further north from China. Wherever there are ethnic rebel armies, the junta is sweeping away the villages who support them. No wonder here too the elections are an irrelevance.
For the ethnic peoples and the Burmese people alike, we will all still be treated like slaves and be even more downtrodden. This election is only to legitimise the generals so they can hold on to power.
Back among the pagodas of Mandalay, student monks will always come up to talk to you. They want to improve their English, but no one will talk about politics in a public place. As dusk falls over this magical city,
Come on, Chinese!
it makes a refreshing change to find a couple who have no such inhibitions. The two moustaches offer their version of a traditional Burmese folk opera, interspersed with allusions to the regime that go very close to the bone.
I'm afraid this guy, I'm afraid there's a government, I'm afraid there's a Mara, many people killing.
Which is why they've both been jailed and are now only allowed to perform to tourists in English.
In the slum, in the clinic, 3 times. He was big house.
After their show, I asked Lord Paul what he thinks about the elections.
New voter, old wife.
So will you vote? Are you going to vote?
No, I stay at home. I must stay at home because we be already our vote 21, 20 years ago. Everybody love her.
Lord Paul met Aung San Suu Kyi 20 years ago and, like so many, was smitten. His is an opinion you hear often. We voted for the one we wanted in 1990. She can't stand in these elections, and so why bother? Burma's most famous prisoner still dominates the political scene. The lady, as they call her, was born on a Tuesday. At the Shwedagon Pagoda in Rangoon, the plinth representing Tuesday attracts a constant stream of admirers. For the past 20 years, Burmese politics have been dominated by the struggle between the lady and the generals. Whether people obey her call for a boycott or vote in these elections junta style could be their fiercest contest yet for the hearts and minds of the people of Burma.